The Mind of Elon Musk: How One Man Thinks in First Principles and Reshapes Industries. Part I: The Making of a Revolutionary Mind. Every empire has its origin story, and every revolutionary has a crucible. For Elon Musk, both began in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971. A place where violence, adversity, and a certain kind of intellectual hunger would forge the consciousness of a man who would later reshape multiple industries simultaneously. To understand how Elon Musk thinks, one must first understand how he learned to survive. Musk's childhood was marked by extremes, both intellectual and physical. His father, Elon Musk, was a man who believed in toughness through adversity. When young Elon was just 6 years old, he experienced a traumatic incident that would define his relationship with suffering and resilience. The family's German shepherd attacked him, biting a significant chunk from his back. Despite this trauma, Elon insisted the dog not be punished. His family shot the dog anyway. This wasn't cruelty, it was simply the way things were done in that household, where violence was considered part of the learning experience. The bullying began in earnest at school. Musk was small, intellectually isolated from his peers, emotionally awkward, and utterly uninterested in social conventions. At Bryanston High School, a group of boys attacked him so severely that he was hospitalized. The assault was brutal enough that his parents transferred him to Pretoria Boys High School. But the true test came at the wilderness survival camps his family sent him to, places called veldschools, which were less about survival and more about learning to endure pain. At age 12, small and emotionally unequipped, Elon was beaten twice during his first veldschool experience, losing over 4 kilograms in a week. Children were given rationed food and water, then encouraged to fight over it. Bullying was not merely tolerated, it was considered a virtue. The lesson embedded itself deeply. Survival meant not avoiding pain, but absorbing it. Learning to shut off what Musk would later describe as his fear valve. By the time he attended his second veldschool, around age 15, something had changed. Elon had grown, learned some judo, and developed a critical insight. I realized by then that if someone bullied me, I could punch them very hard in the nose, and then they wouldn't bully me again. This wasn't just about physical self-defense. It was about understanding that problems could be solved through direct action, through confrontation, through refusing to accept conventional limitations. His father's approach was different, but reinforced the same lesson. Elon Musk would sit his sons down for hours-long tirades of yelling and criticism. The boy learned to cope by dissociating, by mentally shutting down his emotional response. Walter Isaacson, Musk's official biographer, notes that Errol himself said, "Their experiences with me would have made veldschool quite tame." This created in Elon an extraordinary, perhaps dangerous, tolerance for stress and an unusual ability to compartmentalize emotional pain. More importantly, it taught him that weakness was a choice, that fear was something you could override through willpower. But there was another side to Musk's childhood that was equally formative: intellectual precocity combined with complete indifference to social hierarchy. At age 9, without formal instruction, he taught himself computer programming. At 12, he wrote his first video game, a space-themed shooter called Blastar, and sold it to a computer magazine for roughly $500. Her mother recalls that when examiners administered a university-level computer programming aptitude test to 17-year-old Elon Musk, he scored so extraordinarily high that they made him retake it, convinced there had been an error. This combination, a mind operating at multiple standard deviations above average, combined with a nervous system that had been deliberately hardened against pain and fear, created something unusual. A person fundamentally incapable of accepting that that's just how things are done. When confronted with a problem that society had agreed was unsolvable, Elon's childhood taught him two things. First, that the conventional approach was likely built on lazy assumptions, and second, that the only way forward was to endure whatever pain confronting the problem would require. In 1989, at age 17, Elon made a decision that would have seemed reckless to most teenagers. He left South Africa. The immediate reason was to avoid mandatory military service in the apartheid regime, a military conscription he found morally unconscionable. But the deeper reason was that South Africa felt too small for his ambitions. He had obtained a Canadian passport through his mother, who was born in Saskatchewan, and with roughly 2,000 Canadian dollars in his pocket, a backpack, and a suitcase of books, he emigrated to the Canadian prairies to work on his mother's cousin's farm. He worked on farms, then at a lumber mill in Vancouver, jobs designed to break lesser spirits. He attended Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario for 2 years, studying economics and physics. But by 1992, at age 22, he made another decisive move. He transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, completing dual bachelor's degrees in economics and physics. The economics degree was instrumental. Musk understood that you couldn't reshape industries without understanding the financial architecture that held them in place. By 1995, at age 25, Elon had made it to Silicon Valley, the epicenter of the digital revolution. The internet was exploding. Everyone with a computer science degree believed they could become a billionaire. This was the moment when Musk's thinking crystallized into what would become his defining approach to business: first principles reasoning. Musk had just been accepted to Stanford for a PhD in physics. He showed up on campus, and then, 2 days later, he withdrew. His reasoning was cold and logical. He had concluded that the internet had more potential to reshape human civilization in the next decade than anything he could contribute through theoretical physics research. In physics, progress is incremental, validated by peer review, published in journals that reach a few thousand specialists. On the internet, change happens exponentially, affects billions of people, and the financial returns are staggering. From a first principles perspective, the optimal allocation of his time wasn't a physics lab at Stanford. It was building something on the internet. Part 2. The First Ventures: Building Wealth Through Digital Revolution. Musk's first company, Zip2, founded in 1995 with $28,000 in funding from his father, was intellectually simple: an online city guide and directory for local businesses. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was early, and it worked. The company provided maps, business listings, and classified ads online when most people were still using Yellow Pages. By 1999, Compaq Computer Corporation agreed to acquire Zip2 for $307 million in cash. At 28 years old, with just 4 years of entrepreneurial experience, Musk walked away with $22 million. Most people would have rested. Musk saw it as capital to deploy. He immediately invested $10 million of his $22 million into his next venture, X.com, an online financial services and email payment company. The timing was perfect. The financial services industry was ripe for digital disruption. X.com became one of the first federally insured online banks, and in its initial months of operation, over 200,000 customers joined the service. But Musk's problem-solving approach immediately created friction. Investors regarded him as inexperienced, which was technically true, and by the end of 1999, they replaced him as CEO with Bill Harris, the then CEO of Intuit. The message was clear. For all his intellectual power, Musk lacked the corporate experience that traditional business culture valued. For most people, this would have been a devastating setback. He filed it away as data. X.com, however, faced significant technical challenges. The company was operating on Windows-based systems, which Musk considered inadequate for what needed to be built. Meanwhile, another company called Confinity, founded by Max Levchin and Peter Thiel, had built a more robust product called PayPal, a money transfer service that was gaining traction. Rather than compete directly, X.com merged with Confinity in 2000 to avoid mutual destruction. The merged entity kept the PayPal brand, which had become synonymous with internet payments. The company exploded in growth. PayPal became the dominant payment platform for eBay auctions during the dot-com boom, with the service handling hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions. In October 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion. Musk's stake in PayPal, earned from his initial $10 million investment and his equity as co-founder, was worth $165 million. By age 32, Musk had created and sold 2 internet companies for a combined $470 million. He had proven he could identify emerging technological trends, move faster than incumbents, and scale rapidly. Most importantly, he had accumulated enough capital to pursue something that couldn't be achieved on a startup budget: changing the fundamental infrastructure of human civilization. Part 3. First Principles Thinking in Practice, the SpaceX Revolution. By 2002, Musk had become obsessed with a problem that most people considered a distraction. Why hadn't humanity put a person on Mars? The space industry in 2002 looked exactly like it had looked in 1972. The same contractors were launching rockets at roughly the same costs. The Space Shuttle program, once the crown jewel of American space exploration, had become bogged down in massive cost overruns and conservative engineering. Rockets were expensive not because the physics required it, but because the industry had become ossified. Nobody had seriously attempted to innovate. Musk's first instinct was pragmatic. He tried to buy rockets. He contacted Russian space agencies, hoping to purchase old ICBMs or launch vehicles and refurbish them. The prices were astronomical, tens of millions of dollars per launch, with no room for cost reduction. This is where Musk's thinking diverged from every space industry veteran. He didn't accept that rockets were expensive because rockets were inherently expensive. He applied first principles thinking. A rocket, Musk reasoned, is fundamentally constructed from raw materials: aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. He checked the commodity market prices for these materials. What he discovered was shocking. The raw materials in a rocket cost approximately 2% of the price of a fully assembled rocket. The remaining 98% of the cost came from engineering, manufacturing overhead, profit margins, and institutional inefficiency. In other words, the industry had built a system that treated rocket manufacturing like aerospace companies treated aircraft manufacturing, with every component made to last forever, with massive redundancy, with conservative design margins built on top of conservative design margins. It was, as Musk would later describe it, building a Ferrari when a Honda Accord would do the trick. In 2002, with $100 million of his PayPal proceeds, Elon Musk founded SpaceX. The company had an absurd mission: to build rockets cheaper than anyone else in the world had ever built them, and eventually to make them reusable. Every space industry expert said it was impossible. NASA had spent decades on the Space Shuttle, the first reusable spacecraft, and it had proven to be more expensive to operate than expendable rockets. The engineering community consensus was clear: reusable rockets were a fantasy. Musk didn't care about consensus. He cared about physics. The first 3 SpaceX launches failed catastrophically. In 2006 and 2007, 3 Falcon 9 rockets exploded on the launch pad or moments after launch. SpaceX was bleeding money. The company had one shot left, the 4th Falcon 9 launch in September 2008, and if it failed, SpaceX was finished. Musk had already invested most of his remaining capital, and the company had no other funding sources. SpaceX's 4th attempt succeeded. Falcon 9 reached orbit. Musk didn't celebrate for long. The company was nearly bankrupt, but the proof of concept was established. They could build rockets, and they could reduce costs. The critical insight wasn't that reusable rockets were theoretically possible, it was that they had to exist. SpaceX's business model, its path to profitability, its entire reason for existing depended on cost reduction through reuse. By 2012, SpaceX launched Falcon 9, the company's larger, more capable rocket designed to carry cargo to the International Space Station. SpaceX advertised a launch price of $57 million per Falcon 9. For context, traditional aerospace contractors were charging multiples of that. The first stage booster represented 75% of the launch cost, roughly $46.5 million. Then Musk pushed for reusability. SpaceX began recovering and relaunching Falcon 9 first stages. By applying first principles to the problem, recognizing that the fundamental constraint was rocket materials cost plus engineering, not some immutable law of physics, Musk's company achieved something the entire space industry said was impossible: a 70% reduction in launch costs through booster reuse. Current Falcon 9 launch costs sit at approximately $62 million, with private companies and governments scrambling to develop competitive alternatives that SpaceX has already made obsolete. The business model flipped traditional aerospace on its head. Instead of maximizing revenue per launch, SpaceX maximized launch frequency. Higher frequency meant better amortization of fixed costs, which enabled further cost reduction, which enabled even higher frequency. By 2024, SpaceX conducted 28 Falcon 9 launches, demonstrating the viability of the model. SpaceX's revenue tells the story. In 2023, the company generated $8.7 billion in revenue. By 2024, that had grown to $14.2 billion, a 63% year-over-year increase. Musk has publicly stated that SpaceX is targeting approximately $15.5 billion in revenue for 2025. More recently, in December 2025, SpaceX is preparing for a secondary stock sale that could value the company at $800 billion, potentially doubling its previous $400 billion valuation. For a company that barely survived bankruptcy in 2008, this represents an extraordinary validation of first principles thinking applied to aerospace. Starlink, SpaceX's satellite internet subsidiary, has become the company's dominant revenue driver. Launched in beta with just 10,000 users in 2021, Starlink has scaled to 8.5 million subscribers as of September 2025, with projections suggesting it will deliver roughly 70% of SpaceX's total revenue in 2025. The satellite internet business generates the cash flow that funds SpaceX's core mission, building a self-sustaining human civilization on Mars. Musk's Mars vision remains unchanged since 2002. Create a fully reusable super heavy lift launch vehicle capable of transporting humans and cargo to the Red Planet with sufficient frequency to establish a self-sustaining city. SpaceX is developing Starship, a fully reusable two-stage vehicle designed to achieve this goal. SpaceX has invested more than $3 billion into the Starbase facility and Starship systems from July 2014 to May 2023, with Musk stating in April 2023 that SpaceX expected to spend about $2 billion on Starship development in 2023 alone. More recent data suggests the Starship program costs approximately $4 million per day, representing an extraordinary commitment of capital and engineering talent. Musk is currently targeting a late 2026 launch of the first uncrewed Starship to Mars, with arrival expected in early 2027, assuming successful orbital refueling tests. The long-term vision remains unchanged: transport 1 million people to Mars by 2050, establishing self-sustaining civilization with iron foundries and pizza joints. Musk estimates the eventual cost per Starship launch could go up to as low as $1 million once the system achieves full operational reusability. Part 4. Tesla, disrupting the most entrenched industry. While SpaceX was building rockets, Musk was being pulled into a different revolution: the automotive industry. In July 2003, two engineers named Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning founded Tesla Motors, naming the company after inventor Nikola Tesla. Their vision was focused but ambitious: build high-performance electric vehicles that could change the industry's trajectory. The company had legitimate technology and engineering talent. Musk didn't found Tesla, but in February 2004, he led the company's first major investment round, injecting $6.5 million of his own capital and becoming chairman of the board. He had deep pockets from his PayPal success, a growing reputation as a technologist, and a visceral instinct for branding. More importantly, he had a vision that went beyond Eberhard and Tarpenning's focus on high-performance vehicles.
Musk saw electric vehicles as an essential piece of transitioning humanity from a fossil fuel economy to a sustainable energy economy. This required a different thinking approach than SpaceX. SpaceX was about first principles, understanding the physics of rockets and stripping away the unnecessary cost. Tesla required a different discipline, understanding the fundamental constraints of battery technology and working within them, then pushing the entire manufacturing ecosystem to scale profitably. In 2010, Tesla filed for its initial public offering. The company had generated only $150 million in lifetime revenue, primarily from the Roadster, an expensive limited production sports car. The company had posted losses of $55.7 million in 2009 and $82.8 million in 2008, for a total cumulative loss exceeding $300 million since inception. Traditional venture capitalists would have considered Tesla a black hole of capital. The IPO raised $226 million, with shares surging 41% on the first day, despite investor skepticism about the company's path to profitability. The critical decision came in 2012. Tesla launched the Model S, a sedan targeting the mass-market luxury segment, priced at $49,500 after accounting for federal tax credits, though base models started higher. The company faced a monumental manufacturing challenge, from producing hundreds of Roadsters per year to producing hundreds of Model S vehicles per week. By Q4 2012, Tesla achieved exactly that, producing over 400 vehicles per week and 20,000 units on an annualized basis. Q4 revenue reached $306 million, a 500% sequential increase from Q3, driven almost entirely by Model S deliveries. The gross margin in Q4 improved to nearly 8% from negative 17% in Q3, signaling that the manufacturing had turned a corner toward profitability. By full year 2012, Tesla's revenue hit $413 million, and the company was positioned to achieve profitability in Q1 2013. A transition from cumulative losses to positive cash generation that vindicated Musk's vision. The reason Tesla succeeds where dozens of other electric vehicle startups have failed comes back to first principles thinking, but applied to manufacturing and supply chain. Traditional automotive companies operate through massive networks of suppliers, each taking margins. Tesla's approach was radical. Vertical integration. Rather than outsourcing battery production, Tesla built its own battery manufacturing plants, gigafactories, in Nevada, Germany, China, and Texas, allowing the company to control costs, quality, and supply. This gave Tesla leverage that competitors couldn't match. By 2025, Tesla's market capitalization reached $1.51 trillion, making it more valuable than the entire traditional automotive industry combined. The company's annual revenue has grown to approximately $95.6 billion, with net income of $5.1 billion. Tesla remains profitable, dominant in electric vehicles, and has established itself as a technology company masquerading as an automaker. But Tesla's journey wasn't linear. The company went through periods where its future seemed uncertain. Musk took extraordinary personal risks. At one point, he was living in the Tesla factory in Fremont for 3 years, sleeping on a couch, then moving to sleeping on the floor under his desk during shift changes. His reasoning was explicit. He wanted his team to see that he wasn't drinking Mai Tais on a tropical island while demanding they work brutal hours. This sleeping on the floor approach became iconic, a symbol of Musk's willingness to endure the same hardship he demanded from his team, a direct echo of the lessons from his South African childhood. In 2016, Musk orchestrated Tesla's acquisition of SolarCity, a residential solar installation company, for $2.6 billion in stock. The acquisition seemed tangential to automotive manufacturing, but it represented Musk's holistic vision, a complete energy ecosystem where customers could install solar panels, charge batteries, and power electric vehicles. A seamless transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. The vertical integration extended beyond manufacturing into energy infrastructure itself. Part V, the algorithm, how Musk makes decisions and solves problems. What ties SpaceX, Tesla, and all of Musk's ventures together isn't just first principles thinking. It's a specific decision-making algorithm that Musk has refined over decades of building companies. This algorithm emerged from his engineering background and was crystallized through repeated success and failure.
Musk's 5-step engineering algorithm for building almost anything is: 1. Make requirements less dumb. Musk believes that even smart people make dumb requirements because they inherit assumptions without questioning them. His instruction: question everything. Don't accept departmental wisdom. Every requirement should justify its existence. At Tesla, this meant asking why certain features existed at all. At SpaceX, it meant asking why every component had the specifications it did. Remarkably often, the answer was, that's how we've always done it. 2. Delete the part or process. Once unnecessary requirements are identified, delete them. Musk's rule of thumb: if you don't add back at least 10% of what you deleted, you didn't delete enough. This sounds counterintuitive until you realize that most organizations are bloated with redundancy, legacy processes, and features nobody actually needs. The best part, Musk argues, is no part at all. 3. Simplify and optimize the process. Only after deleting unnecessary elements should you optimize what remains. Most companies optimize first, then delete. This locks in inefficiency. By deleting first, you're optimizing the right process rather than making a broken process slightly less broken. 4. Accelerate cycle time. Speed matters. Musk treats speed as a competitive advantage because it is. The faster you can iterate, test, and improve, the faster you learn. Rapid iteration is core to SpaceX's philosophy. Blow up 3 rockets, learn from the failure, and have the 4th succeed. Slow iteration means slow learning. 5. Automate. Only once you've streamlined the process through steps 1 through 4 should you automate it. Automating a broken process just breaks it faster. Most manufacturing companies reverse this order, automating existing processes and then wondering why their automation is expensive and inflexible. This algorithm emerged from Musk's application of first principles thinking to the actual process of building. It's not unique to Musk. It reflects principles from lean manufacturing, from agile software development, from engineering best practices. But Musk's genius is in the ruthlessness of application and the unwillingness to accept social conventions that protect existing processes. When Musk acquired Twitter for $44 billion in October 2022, he applied this algorithm with shocking brutality. The company had 8,000 employees. Musk fired the top 4 executives for cause on the day the acquisition closed, a move designed to save $128 million in compensation. Then, he implemented his algorithm at scale. He demanded that the engineering team reduce the codebase, eliminate unnecessary servers, and streamline infrastructure. On Christmas Eve 2022, against the advice of his engineers, he flew to Sacramento and personally unplugged servers from Twitter's data center there to hasten the company's exit from that facility. The move disrupted tools used to monitor illegal activity, forcing engineers to reconfigure infrastructure over the holidays. But it generated over $100 million in annual savings. He cut spending comprehensively, eliminated car services for executives, slashed contractor spending, reduced headcount to 1,500 from 8,000, an 81% reduction. In a 6-hour meeting reviewing the company's expenses line by line, he famously confronted an employee responsible for a multi-million-dollar website security contract, noting that Tesla spent far less on equivalent services. When the employee pushed back, Musk terminated her employment. The brutality was strategic. Musk was signaling, there are no sacred cows, no departments immune to scrutiny, no assumptions beyond question. This creates organizational fear, which is uncomfortable but incredibly clarifying. When employees know their job security depends on demonstrating the concrete value they add, waste evaporates. Part 6. The mental architecture. How Elon Musk actually thinks. The through line connecting all Musk's success is his specific way of thinking about problems.
It's not genius in the sense of raw intellectual horsepower. Musk is obviously intelligent, but there are many intelligent people who fail. Rather, it's his approach to thinking that's distinctive. First principles decomposition. Musk habitually breaks complex problems into their fundamental components. Rockets cost too much? Break a rocket into its material constituents and check commodity prices. Electric vehicles are impossible? Examine the physics of batteries, motors, and power electronics. Twitter's costs are excessive? Go through the expense spreadsheet line by line and justify every item. This sounds simple, but is extraordinarily rare in practice because it requires questioning inherited assumptions rather than accepting them. Willingness to embrace failure as information. Musk's childhood taught him to survive pain. His business experience taught him that failure is data. SpaceX's first 3 rocket launches failed. Rather than view this as disqualifying, Musk doubled down and built the 4th. His philosophy, stated clearly, if things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. Most organizations treat failure as something to hide. Musk treats it as evidence that the problem is hard enough to be worth solving. Extreme risk tolerance. This comes directly from his childhood. Musk believes in concentrated bets. When he discovered that rockets were too expensive, he didn't diversify his capital across multiple rocket startups. He invested everything in SpaceX and personally took on the risk of bankruptcy. When Tesla's future was uncertain, he poured his resources into scaling the Model S rather than playing it safe. When he identified the internet as more important than physics research, he withdrew from Stanford after 2 days. His father taught him that fear can be overridden. His business experience taught him that the biggest risks often carry the largest rewards. Vertical integration and supply chain control. Musk recognizes that dependencies create vulnerability. If SpaceX relied on external suppliers for boosters, those suppliers could hold the company hostage with high prices. If Tesla relied on battery suppliers, the company's margin and supply reliability would be determined by those suppliers. This drives Musk toward ownership and control of critical supply chains. His companies manufacture their own rockets, build their own batteries, control their own distribution. This is expensive upfront, but creates moats against competition and allows for rapid innovation. Speed as a competitive advantage. Musk views speed not just as efficiency, but as a fundamental strategic advantage. The faster you can test ideas, the faster you can iterate toward better solutions. The faster you can move, the harder you are to compete against. This is why he demands rapid iteration at SpaceX and rapid decision-making at Tesla. Bureaucracy, consensus building, and extensive review processes are seen as enemies. They slow down learning. Money is a tool, not a goal. This is critical to understanding Musk's decision-making. He has stated explicitly that he doesn't know how rich he is. Wealth is just votes in the companies he owns. His net worth, estimated at $500 billion as of late 2025, is almost entirely tied up in equity in Tesla and SpaceX. He doesn't hoard cash. He reinvests it. When Twitter was struggling and his valuation plummeted 72% in the year after his $44 billion acquisition, Musk didn't panic and sell. He invested additional capital and drove operational improvements. This perspective allows him to take long-term views that financial investors can't afford to take. Part 7. The Portfolio of Ambition. By the mid-2020s, Musk's portfolio of companies spans an extraordinary range of industries and ambitions. Tesla, founded in 2003, market cap $1.51 trillion as of December 5, 2025. Annual revenue approximately $96.6 billion. The company has fundamentally transformed the automotive industry, forcing every traditional automaker to develop electric vehicles or face extinction. Tesla also manufactures batteries, solar panels, and energy storage systems, positioning itself as a complete energy company. SpaceX, founded in 2002, revenue of $14.2 billion in 2024, targeting $15.5 billion in 2025. Private valuation estimated at $350 billion to $800 billion depending on transaction, with the company preparing for a potential IPO in late 2026. SpaceX has completely disrupted the launch services industry and is actively developing Starship for Mars transportation. Neuralink, founded in 2016, a brain-computer interface company founded with a team of 8 scientists and engineers. The company began human clinical trials in 2024 and raised $650 million in Series C funding in June 2025 to expand testing and manufacturing. xAI, founded in 2023, an artificial intelligence company with the stated mission to understand the true nature of the universe. Incorporated in March 2023, xAI has recruited executives from Google's DeepMind, Microsoft, and Tesla. The company is separate from X, formerly Twitter, but works closely with it. X, formerly Twitter, acquired in October 2022, purchased for $44 billion. The company has experienced valuation volatility, but has recovered to approximately $44 billion valuation as of 2025 after Musk's operational restructuring and xAI investment. The Boring Company, founded in 2016. Though representing only approximately 2% of Musk's time, this company develops tunnel boring technology intended to reduce urban congestion through underground tunnels for vehicles and pedestrians. The portfolio reveals Musk's consistent focus on what he perceives as fundamental challenges to human civilization: sustainable energy, Tesla; space exploration and multiplanetary civilization, SpaceX; restoring human neurological function and augmenting human capability, Neuralink; general artificial intelligence, xAI; and infrastructure, The Boring Company. These aren't random business ventures, they're pieces of a coherent vision about what's required for human civilization to thrive long-term. Part 8. The Numbers That Matter. Understanding Elon Musk requires engaging with the specific financial metrics that validate his approach. PayPal, sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002. Musk's stake, $165 million. This demonstrated that internet disruption of legacy industries was viable. Zip2, sold to Compaq for $307 million in 1999. Musk's stake, $22 million. This was the largest sum paid for an internet company at that time. Tesla IPO 2010 raised $226.1 million, with stock surging 41% on the first day, despite the company's cumulative losses exceeding $300 million. Tesla Model S 2012, revenue of $413 million for full year 2012, with Q4 reaching $306 million, a 500% sequential increase. This was the inflection point that proved Tesla's manufacturing scalability. Tesla current valuation 2025, $1.51 trillion market cap, making it more valuable than the world's traditional automotive industry combined. SpaceX revenue growth, $8.7 billion 2023 to $14.2 billion 2024, targeting $15.5 billion 2025. This 63% year-over-year growth from 2023 to 2024 demonstrates the company's ability to scale launches and satellite internet subscribers. SpaceX valuation, potentially $800 billion in its next funding round, making it the most valuable private company globally, surpassing OpenAI's $500 billion valuation. Falcon 9 launch cost reduced from $57 million in 2012 to $62 million today, representing operational stability while continuously improving through reusability. Traditional aerospace competitors charge multiples of this amount. Starship development cost, approximately $4 million per day, with SpaceX having invested over $3 billion cumulatively from July 2014 to May 2023. Twitter acquisition, $44 billion purchase price in October 2022. Company subsequently valued at approximately $44 billion as of 2025, recovering from a 72% valuation decline despite massive cost-cutting and organizational restructuring. Neuralink funding, $650 million in Series C funding in June 2025, enabling human clinical trials that began in 2024. Elon Musk net worth, estimated at $500 billion as of October 2025, with $342 billion increase in 2025 alone, primarily from Tesla stock appreciation.
These numbers matter because they validate Musk's approach. The companies he builds don't just create intellectual breakthroughs. They achieve financial scale that proves that breakthroughs are real. SpaceX's revenue growth proves that reusable rockets reduce costs. Tesla's market cap proves that electric vehicles can dominate their industry. These aren't speculative valuations based on future promises. They're valuations based on demonstrated execution. Part 9. The pattern recognition. What connects all Musk ventures? Looking across Musk's companies, specific patterns emerge that suggest a unified worldview. Pattern 1. Disruption through cost reduction. Every Musk company achieves disruption not by inventing new categories, but by dramatically reducing the cost of essential services. SpaceX reduced launch costs by 70% through reusability. Tesla reduced the cost of electric vehicle production through vertical integration and manufacturing innovation. Neuralink aims to reduce the cost and invasiveness of brain-computer interface technology. This pattern suggests Musk's core belief: most industries are expensive not because they must be, but because they've become ossified and inefficient. Pattern 2. Long-term vision with near-term execution discipline. While Musk is famous for ambitious timelines that often slip, his companies are relentless about execution. The specificity is revealing. Musk targets Mars colonization in 2050, but he's building Starship now with quarterly milestones. Tesla targets 20 million vehicles per year eventually, but focuses on quarterly production targets. This isn't contradiction, it's time horizon stacking. The long-term vision provides direction. The near-term execution discipline provides progress. Pattern 3. Addressing existential risks to civilization. Tesla addresses the existential risk of climate change through sustainable energy. SpaceX addresses the existential risk of single-planet civilization through multi-planetary colonization. Neuralink addresses the existential risk of human cognitive limitations relative to artificial intelligence. This suggests Musk views business not merely as wealth creation, but as civilization-level problem-solving. His companies exist to address challenges that governments and markets haven't solved. Pattern 4. Controlling fundamental technology. Musk's companies don't rely on external suppliers for critical technology. SpaceX builds its own rockets and engines. Tesla manufactures its own batteries. Neuralink develops its own neural sensors. This vertical integration is expensive and risky, but provides control and rapid iteration capability that external dependencies would prevent. Pattern 5. Founder-led organizations. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and xAI are all led by Musk as CEO or Chief Technical Officer. This isn't about ego. It's about maintaining alignment between the company's direction and Musk's vision. He can't achieve multi-generational goals through hired management that must answer to quarterly earnings pressure and investment preferences. Part 10. The criticism and contradiction. Understanding Musk requires acknowledging significant criticisms of his approach. His timelines are notoriously optimistic. He predicted Mars landing in 2018, then 2022, then 2026. Each delay is treated as merely a data point, not as a failure. This pattern of optimistic forecasting could be viewed as either visionary, aiming high provides direction, or dishonest, consistently misleading investors and the public. His approach to Twitter cost-cutting was brutal and occasionally counterproductive. Cutting 81% of the workforce and eliminating $500 million in spending improved profitability, but also degraded service quality, drove advertisers away, and generated significant technical outages. Some argue Musk prioritized short-term cost reduction over long-term value creation. His public behavior is erratic and frequently offensive. Twitter posts that move markets, inflammatory political statements, and the tendency to engage in public feuds with critics create uncertainty around his judgment and raise questions about his fitness for leadership roles.
His dismissal of workers' rights, his public criticism of what he perceives as weak work ethic in America compared to China, and his willingness to fire long-term employees for disagreement raise ethical questions about his leadership style. His resistance to government regulation and his pursuit of vertical integration can be viewed as anti-competitive behavior that limits market competition and creates monopolies in certain sectors. These criticisms are not insignificant. They suggest that Musk's approach to business, ruthless cost reduction, rapid iteration, founder control, and extreme risk-taking comes with genuine costs. The question isn't whether Musk's methods are costless, it's whether the ends justify the means and whether the model scales. Part 11. The Strategic Synthesis. Why Musk Thinks Differently. Synthesizing all of this reveals why Musk's thinking produces different outcomes than conventional business. Most business leaders face pressure to maximize quarterly earnings. This creates incentives to optimize existing businesses rather than cannibalize them with new models. Musk's companies often intentionally destroy their own markets, making previous versions obsolete, cutting prices to accelerate adoption, investing in long-term capabilities that reduce short-term profitability. Most business leaders think in terms of competitive advantage. Musk thinks in terms of physical laws and first principles. This subtle shift is profound. If your advantage comes from patents or brand or scale, competitors can match it given time. If your advantage comes from understanding physics better than competitors, it's much harder to copy. Most business leaders optimize for survival. Musk optimizes for impact. His willingness to risk bankruptcy multiple times, PayPal in 2002, SpaceX through 2008, Tesla through 2013, reflects an unusual value system where personal wealth preservation ranks below accomplishing the mission. Most business leaders build organizations designed for stability and efficient operation. Musk built organizations designed for rapid change and innovation. This creates constant internal conflict and high employee turnover, but it prevents organizational sclerosis, the tendency for mature companies to become conservative and resistant to change. Most business leaders accept industry constraints as given. Musk questions every constraint. Why do rockets cost so much? Why do electric vehicles cost as much as luxury cars? Why does manufacturing require as many employees? Why does Tesla need a sales network? Each assumption, questioned and attacked, reveals opportunities for disruption. Conclusion: the mind of a civilization shaper. Elon Musk thinks differently because he was shaped differently. A childhood marked by extreme bullying taught him to endure adversity rather than avoid it. A father who believed in toughness through hardship taught him that comfort is the enemy of achievement. An early encounter with the internet during its explosive growth taught him that technology can reshape industries faster than incumbents can adapt. A near-death experience with SpaceX taught him that belief in first principles, combined with relentless execution, can overcome seemingly impossible odds. The core of Musk's thinking is fundamentally optimistic. He believes that problems can be solved through engineering and willpower. He believes that constraints that seem immutable often aren't. They're just inherited assumptions. He believes that speed and iteration beat careful planning and consensus. He believes that addressing civilization-level challenges is not only possible, but necessary. His actual success, building the world's most valuable automaker, creating a launch service that's disrupted aerospace, scaling Starlink to millions of subscribers, preparing to establish human civilization on Mars, suggests that this approach to thinking produces real-world results. His companies generate extraordinary revenues, employ tens of thousands, and shape entire industries. Whether this thinking style can be replicated or whether it's uniquely suited to Musk's particular circumstances remains an open question. What's undeniable is that Musk has demonstrated a way of thinking about business and technology that produces outsized results. He asks different questions.
He accepts different constraints. He tolerates different levels of risk. This different thinking has reshaped multiple industries and created trillions in shareholder value. The mind of Elon Musk is ultimately the mind of someone who refuses to accept that the world must remain as it is. Every industry he enters, he disrupts. Every problem he confronts, he reimagines. Every limit he encounters, he pushes against. Whether you view this as visionary genius or destructive arrogance likely depends on your own philosophy about how change should occur. But there's no credible argument that his way of thinking, first principles analysis, rapid iteration, extreme risk tolerance, and founder-led control produces ineffective results. The companies are real. The revenue is real. The impact is real. In a world where most business thinking is derivative and incremental, Elon Musk's thinking is fundamental and revolutionary. Understanding that thinking, how he got there, how it works, and how it manifests in his companies is understanding one of the most influential business minds of our era.